A reading from the book of Exodus. The tent, which was called the meeting tent, Moses used to pitch at some distance away from outside the camp. Anyone who wished to consult the Lord would go to this meeting tent outside the camp. Whenever Moses went out to the tent, the people would all rise and stand at the entrance of their own tents, watching Moses until he entered the tent. As Moses entered the tent, the column of cloud would come down and stand at its entrance while the Lord spoke with Moses. On seeing the column of cloud stand at the entrance of the tent, all the people would rise and worship at the entrance of their own tents. The Lord used to speak to Moses face to face, as one man speaks to another. Moses would then return to the camp, but his young assistant Joshua, son of Nun, would not move out of the tent. Moses stood there with the Lord and proclaimed his name, Lord. Thus the Lord passed before him and cried out, the Lord, a merciful and gracious God, slow to anger and rich in kindness and fidelity, continuing his kindness for 1,000 generations, and forgiving wickedness and crime and sin, yet not declaring the guilty guiltless, but punishing children and grandchildren to the 3rd and 4th generation for their father's wickedness. Moses at once bowed down to the ground to worship. Then he said, If I find favor with you, O Lord, do come along in our company. This is indeed a stiff-necked people, yet pardon our wickedness and sins and receive us as your own. So Moses stayed there with the Lord for 40 days and 40 nights without eating any food or drinking any water, and he wrote on the tablets the words of the covenant, the 10 Commandments. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
The Lord is kind and merciful.
The Lord is kind and merciful.
The Lord secures justice and the rights of all the oppressed. He has made known his ways to Moses and his deeds to the children of Israel.
The Lord is kind and merciful.
Merciful and gracious is the Lord, slow to anger and abounding in kindness. He will not always chide, nor does he keep his wrath forever.
The Lord is kind and merciful.
Not according to our deeds does he deal with us, nor does he requite us according to our crimes. For as the heavens are high above the earth, so surpassing is his kindness towards those who fear him.
The Lord is kind and merciful.
As far as the east is from the west, so far has he put our transgressions from us. As a father has compassion on his children, so the Lord has compassion on those who fear him.
The Lord is kind and merciful. Alleluia, 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 alleluia. Alleluia, alleluia, alleluia. The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to St. Matthew. Jesus dismissed the crowds and went into the house. His disciples approached him and said, "Explain to us the parable of the weeds in the field." He said in reply, "He who sows good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world, and the good seed, the children of the kingdom. The weeds, they're the children of the evil one, and the enemy who sows them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the age, and the harvesters are angels. Just as weeds are collected and burned up with fire, so it will be at the end of the age. The Son of Man will send his angels, and they will collect out from his kingdom all those who cause others to sin, and all evildoers. They will throw them into the fiery furnace, where there will be wailing and grinding of teeth. Then the righteous will shine like the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Whoever has ears ought to hear. The Gospel of the Lord. In our first reading today, Moses had a tremendous desire to see God. And this desire is something that we can see all through the Scriptures. I had a couple of notes written down. Psalm 42, for example. When can I enter and see the face of God? We see the same spirit in Psalm 63. I've looked for you in the sanctuary. I've looked for you, O Lord. Then in the New Testament, we have at the end of John's Gospel, right after the raising of Lazarus, Greeks come to Philip and Andrew and say, Sir, we want to see Jesus. We want to see Jesus. Philip at the Last Supper says, Lord, show us the Father. That'll be enough for us. Just show us the Father. So we've got this tremendous desire in the Scriptures to see God. Why? Because is it not the case that when you're in love with someone, you want to be able to see them and to be with them? I want to see God. Moses so incredibly in love with God. These people who long to see Jesus, maybe for the sake of falling in love with him. And for us, we are taught that, in fact, the point of our judgment and the point of our being welcomed into God's presence is to see the face of God and live, as the hymn, Be Not Afraid says. And that our theology teaches us that being in the presence of God is what's called the beatific vision. It is that vision of God that grants us utter and absolute, perfect contentment, peace, joy, and salvation. What an incredible thing then to be able to see the one who loves us so much and then therefore to be transformed into equal love with God. That's what we long for. That's what Moses experienced, what he wanted so much. May our longing for the face of God never grow dim. Let us stand and pray.